Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. It is a glorious day in Steeler land. Dave, what's going on?
Hey, I had a better afternoon today because the Steelers practice was done and everything else, but I was so used to just kicking back and saying, all right, my day is over. I unfortunately did that more around 1 o'clock today than the typical 5 o'clock. So I felt like I kind of wasted my afternoon a little. It didn't matter. It was pouring, storms and, power flickering and everything. But that's also what was going through Latrobe that they were trying to avoid. So I get why they moved everything forward, but I'm just happy that they stayed ahead of the Doppler, got everything in, and hopefully everything's good tomorrow night for Friday Night Lights.
Absolutely. Bryan, what's up?
All right. I'm doing great, fellas. Thank you so much for having me once again. I think I might come back next week.
You say it like you're a freaking guest. You're on every week. What are you talking about?
You know what? So it's funny because this is right around here is my 10-year anniversary working with Jeff. So right around this week. This is about that time. I think we're right at the anniversary of when I had my life threatened because of my third article about why the Steelers might sign Michael Vick.
Mike Vick, yeah.
I did that.
Wasn't that because you had some jerk editor that changed your headline?
Jeff did change the headline to why they should sign.
That article went berserk, by the way. Like, that got many views. I was doing my damn job. But does it make me a bad person when you all say this stuff? I tell my wife this all the time. Dave's like, oh, it's my anniversary with being with Steel Curtain. I don't remember anything. I don't know when Bryan started. I don't even know when I started. People are like, how long you been doing this? I have no idea. I think back, I remember covering Bud Dupree's draft. But was I the editor at the time? I don't know. I don't really care. We're onward and
I'm so
upward.
nostalgic, though. It's just different people. I'm good with dates. And, 10 years with me and Jeff.
So it's because once our lives were graced with the great Jeff Hartman, it was a memorable thing. We were never the same. We were changed.
Dave, did you hear that when I said 10 years with me and Jeff? He went, ugh.
There's been a lot of heart-to-hearts in that 10 years. Bryan Davis. We'll break down the fourth wall. But anyways, all right. Steelers are back at practice Thursday today. No pads. They're getting ready for Friday Night Lights tomorrow, and so typically they take a respite. And I think, Dave, you put this in our Slack channel earlier. They're keeping with the schedule. They were going to have 2 padded practices, 1 off, and then Friday Night Lights. They were indoors for Tuesday. We didn't get that padded practice, but they're just sticking with the schedule. We want to talk about, in this podcast, some players that are, living up to expectations. Bryan, you thought of this idea. I'll let you go ahead and segue into it.
Well, I've noticed a lot of people right now, they are looking at different players, and maybe it's because of their contracts. Maybe it's because he's Aaron Rodgers. Maybe it's because there's just preconceptions that some people are washed up, or some people are too old, or some people just aren't any good, that we have all these preconceived notions, and there's different expectations. And I think a lot of expectations, like I said, come with the contract. So my thing here is, are people right on schedule, or are they behind, or what's going on? Now, I had a conversation with Kevin Smith yesterday, and he told me, since he was at practice live, he told me about the guys that were really showing up. And he also said this team has a lot of work to be done. They are not Super Bowl ready at this time. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be, but expectations are definitely high. And if you look at, I'm going to call it the hoopla, because there's so much hoopla surrounding this team right now. And case in point, yesterday with the Pat McAfee show there, that was like a circus. That was absolutely insane. The crowd's really into it. The crowds are expecting a lot out of everybody, but should we are they meeting the crowd's expectations is what I'm asking as well.
All right, so when we're talking about expectations, and that's difficult because, like you said, the expectations placed on these players from the coaching staff are different than the fan base. So we are talking about which Steelers are meeting expectations. That's the title of the podcast. That's what we're talking about. So these are players that we think are living up to the hype, not falling short. So, Dave, I'm going to throw it to you first. Can you think of a player who is living up to the expectation?
Well, having to go first, I could, a lot of times you get the low-hanging fruit. I'm going to take the cop-out. I'm going to take the cop-out answer and make you guys have to come up with the more difficult ones. And I'm going to go with punter Cameron Johnston.
Oh, hey, I wouldn't have thought of him. That's a good one, actually.
Because, you don't hear anything about these kickers this time of year. I was talking about that with Greg this morning on Pittsburgh Standard Time. So to hear anything is generally probably only good stuff. And almost every day, at least someone of covering the Steelers is saying, hey, I don't pay attention to him all the time, but when I look over, man, Cameron Johnston is just booming. Now, the other thing that we also brought up is who else also was booming punts every year in training camp. That would have been one. Big Press. Sorry, I'm not even remembering the bad nickname that Bryan had for him to even try to get out there. But
the King. Isn't it like the Presley?
The King.
Or something like that. Oh, yeah.
It was bad. It was bad either way, but go ahead.
Yeah, it really.
I don't understand that.
Okay, at least it wasn't the legacy.
The legacy. The guy's grandpa, and we're talking Robert Spillane, won the Heisman Trophy. 1954.
The legacy would have been better
Ladner
for Presley Harvin because the play on words with leg. But anyway, but no, Cameron Johnston, I think you wanted to hear that, hey, he's out there and he's kicking well coming back from the knee injury, and that's what we've heard.
Okay, so you went with Cameron Johnson. I think it's fair. I'm going to skip Bryan because it was his idea and I get to go next. And so I'm going to go with Peyton Wilson. We talked about Peyton Wilson, and here's the thing for me with Peyton Wilson. It's not just on the field. He's been doing extremely well. He did great on backs on backers from all reports from training camp. You can listen to the Steel City Insider podcast, which ran at 3 p.m. today. They talk about it. That's Jim Wexel, Jeremy Ritz, and they had someone else there who's at camp. He looks phenomenal, and his coverage skills are already great, and they didn't go away. But it's also how he's talking to the media. Like, he wants to be an every down linebacker. He doesn't want to be a specialist, and that's something we talked about with him, where you don't want him to be like that red flag of, uh-oh, here comes this guy. We know what they're going to try and do on defense. So I'm going to go with Peyton Wilson. So far, so good in terms of meeting expectations. Hey, y'all can chime in on that, or Bryan, you can go. It's up to you.
Man, I think Peyton Wilson really is that guy that a lot of people missed out on just because they were scared to draft him because of the buzz on, oh, is he hurt? Is he not? Steelers took a risk on him, but they're getting a lot of rewards. So I love it. I think he is going to be a big guy for the future of that team. I am going to go with a newcomer, and I have a lot of the guys on my list are newcomers, and this was the third one I thought of, and I'm bumping them up. But talking to KT Smith yesterday, he said that DK Metcalf just looks like the guy. He said what he's doing in practice, he said he's a better receiver than what George Pickens was. Now, George Pickens was a good receiver for the Steelers, he said, but what he was saying is that this guy's route running is crisp and clean, no caffeine. It's just absolutely fantastic. And he was making plays with Rodgers in the 7-on-7 yesterday. And in the 7-on-7, they were tied at 3 going to the end. And it was it was basically 4th and goal on that one because it was for the win. And if you're going for the win like that, it was just a perfectly executed play. Rodgers to DK Metcalf. And this guy is going to be a superstar for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I am going to caution everybody on something with DK Metcalf. And everybody's talking about how DK Metcalf is a diva and who has been a head case. We have never seen that. There were never any talks in Seattle about him being a problem in the locker room, him being a problem anywhere else. He just likes to jack up opposing players. And another thing that meets expectations is the fact that immediately he and Jalen Ramsey were fighting when camp started last week. So yeah, he is not a friend to the he's a Hines Ward where he doesn't care. He's going to jack you up and not care. And that's the only problem he's ever been.
I think with DK Metcalf, and this is just exactly goes along with the title of the podcast, 2 words: as advertised. Yeah. You know, there's nothing that's like, oh, well, he's really good, but like, there's none of that. Dave, you can chime in on either one of us.
Yeah.
What we said.
Well, I don't want to be a correctorson, but I'm going to have to. Just
You
I don't know if
always
Brian
are
even
a
knows what he said.
correctorson.
No, well, it was 7 shots is what was going on, not 7 on 7, because that was full team.
Oh,
that
yeah.
means
I
what he
apologize.
did was even. It was the number 7. I know. What means that was even more impressive because that was full on everything out. Could have run, could have whatever. And to me, that makes it a little bit more impressive of what Brian was saying. And I didn't want people to think, oh, well, that was. Sometimes people think of just 7 on 7 because you don't really have a pass rush.
No, you need to correct me on that. Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so because it actually made it stand out more, and that's easy to do when you're talking 7 shots. You know, the number 7, it's the way it is. But yeah, DK Metcalf, and I think that's why you're hearing his name of Aaron Rodgers going to him a good bit, and then Jeff's answer of Peyton Wilson. That's just a really good one. I was kind of trying to curb my expectations for him going into this year. I wanted to see him have a jump, be the guy next to Patrick Queen, even with the other guys that the Steelers had. But I didn't want to bank on that because too many times I've been excited about players going into their second season that they've drafted and they just haven't really necessarily popped. So far, Peyton Wilson has done that. So both of those are great examples.
All right, what's your next one, Dave?
Okay, before my next one, because I don't want to lose it off of my phone, I'm going to bring up, I can't bring it up on the screen, I'm sorry, but we did have a super chat. We had $5 into the tip jar from Captain Underpants, a longtime listener that said, you guys were and always will be my favorites. Thanks for doing everything you guys do. So
Thanks.
because he put it as a super chat, we had to read it. So therefore, I wasn't just wanting to do it to pat ourselves on the back. He's the one that did that. So thank you very much, Captain Underpants, and for the money in the tip jar there.
Thank you, Captain.
I had
Alright.
a chance to get my picture taken with Captain at the last Steeler game I went to in January. What a fantastic guy. I really enjoyed meeting him.
Yes. And so now I'll actually answer Jeff's question. I'm going to go with another newcomer to the Steelers. I'm going to say Jalen Ramsey
Absolutely.
because they've played him in different spots, which therefore makes him be someone that gets mentioned a lot. But hearing the various things that he's been able to do, I think that he's one that's living up to the expectations. Now, see, I was kind of concerned about him because I'm more concerned about him than I was DK Metcalf. The way I look at DK Metcalf, I don't think that he's a head case or a problem. I think DK Metcalf is so passionate about the game, he can lose his cool. But it's over. It's in the past when he's done when people have brought up things that's happened with him. I don't think it's a me attitude, not getting the ball, this, that, or the other stuff. He's more just really passionate and really puts so much work into it that sometimes he can get over emotional about it in the past. So that's why I don't think that he's a problem. Jalen Ramsey, I've wondered because he's never left the place that he's been happy. He's always moved on by trade because he wasn't happy. So for now, it's great. It's one of those guys that if he's eventually not going to be happy, you just want to get as much out of him as you can while he is happy. So the reports and everything from him, I think so far have been really positive.
Yeah, I mean, I did the winners and losers on Monday after the first week, and Jalen Ramsey was my first winner because I was like, how much does he have left in the tank? And that guy's chippy. He's starting, he's stirring it up, and I think he's got the game to back it up. He's not just one of these defensive backs that likes to run his mouth. he's actually able to back it up with some really good play. Bryan, any thoughts on that?
No, he was on my list. He was next up, and I have no problem with Dave taking him because he has, in fact, I think he has exceeded expectations, really. And a lot of people thought there were just as many people that thought that he was washed up and old at his age for the corner position. But there's some guys that just eclipse that over time that you've seen over and over. A guy like Harrison Smith in Minnesota, of course, Rod Woodson, those guys that Ronnie Lott that were able to play well into their 30s. You know, maybe they changed positions, but those guys that there's some long-lasting corners, long-lasting defensive backs, and I think Jalen Ramsey. One thing that I heard from Kevin Smith yesterday is, yeah, they are playing him everywhere. They're not. He's a rolling stone. He's not gathering any moss. I really love the fact that they brought him in.
All right, I'm going to go next, and I'm going to say this is low-hanging fruit for me, but Aaron Rodgers is who I'm going to say next. And that's because this is my own personal expectation. Everyone that you talk about, like DK Metcalf and the narrative surrounding him, oh my gosh, it was tenfold worse for Aaron Rodgers. There were people saying that he's a bad teammate. There's people saying that he's a diva. There's people saying he's an egomaniac. There's people saying that he's going to try and blow things up in his last year. Whatever the case is, at least right now, and no, there's not been a lot of negativity. The proverbial bullets haven't started flying yet. Everything that we've been reading, seeing, hearing teammates say, media even say they cover him in Pittsburgh, is the antithesis of what everyone was saying prior to him signing with the Steelers. And so I came into this thinking, okay, I think he still has the arm. I think he still has the ability to lead the offense. I think he still has the ability to be a leader. And everything that he's done so far has met my expectations. So I still want to see what it looks like, whether it's in preseason game or hopefully obviously regular season game, but still everything that I've seen so far from Aaron Rodgers, and no, I don't care that his first pass was intercepted by Patrick Queen, has been up to my own expectation. Dave, I'll let you chime in on that.
Yeah, and honestly, so is it safe to say, Jeff, that it was more the off the field stuff rather than his actual performance of taking snaps and throwing the football? That is really what.
Well, there were concerns with both, but the on-field definitely outweighs the other stuff, or the off-field. Yes. I'm sorry, the off-field outweighs the on-field stuff.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree with that. That it's that, you know, I even said many critical things back in March and about Aaron Rodgers and, you know, not really being excited about the season and whatnot, if that was how it was going to be. But then I got better informed. And now it's I've got a much different attitude about it. And then he's done and said all the right things. And I really do think one thing that helps is this is really the first time since he took over as the starter in Green Bay where he is not the story of his team.
That's true. Bryan, any take on that?
Yeah, a couple things here. I want to go back to the interception that he threw to Patrick Queen. Kevin Smith was explaining the other day that was Jalen Ramsey to setting that whole thing up. And there's really nothing that, in some situations, there's nothing a quarterback can do about it. But you're right. The one thing to say about Aaron Rodgers here for me is it's like he's going back to the future. I mean, he's going towards the future, but he's going back to Green Bay by going to Pittsburgh. And he mentioned that on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. He mentioned the fact that, you know, I had 18 years of this, and now I have it again in Pittsburgh. Now, when you talk about the Jets, you know the chant, Fireman Ed, Jets, mess, though. And that's really what it is. And if anybody's given, you know, talking about how much of a failure he was in New York, it's because of the record there. The stats were still pretty good, threw for almost 4,000 yards, but the record was horrendous. So a lot of the time there's a lot going on around you too. Not making excuses. Things can fall apart in Pittsburgh. You know, like I like that when you said the bullets go flying. You know, that's definitely when you get some adversity in there, that is liable to happen too. But I think there's a feeling of that. I feel like the Steelers are like the Justice League of America right now, where they have some superheroes coming in, banding together for one thing. It's not truth, justice, and the American way. It's let's try to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, fair enough. Bryan, did we do your next one?
No, we didn't. And I was thinking about this. I have one that's way off the plantation, but let me go with a rookie that's coming in. And I really think that Caleb Johnson is meeting expectations right away. Now, there weren't expectations of him starting. And I still don't think he starts. But I think by the time that we get to December and January, I think he's the RB1 in Pittsburgh if there is such a designation. He is really showing off. Kevin, again, I have not been to camp. So Kevin talked about him, how he was just absolutely getting the holes. He's fast, catches the ball out of the backfield. Everything the Steelers want in a running back is Caleb Johnson, and he is definitely meeting the expectations of even though he was a third-round pick, he's a day two guy that quite possibly can be a day one starter, depending how it goes.
All right, I want to switch this up just a tad, and if you have other names, we'll still talk about them. But I want to see if there's any players that have exceeded your expectations. Meaning, for whatever the case, maybe your expectations were low, or maybe they're just coming out and looking crazy. Are there any players that fit that mold, Dave?
Exceeded expectations.
It's early. It's really early. I know that. But still.
Yeah. You knew that's what I was going to say. There hasn't been that many practices, and we haven't actually seen it really ourselves because we're just mainly getting reports and the limited video that we get. Exceeded. Honestly, I would go back. I kind of said that was your answer of Peyton Wilson, and that's because of the expectations I had on him to not really have, pick up where you left off last year, not necessarily take a huge jump. And already it looks like nothing against last year. He was doing fine last year. He just wasn't asked to have as big of a role. So I would say, if people that we've already mentioned are still on the table, I would say he's the one who's probably exceeded it the most.
Okay. Bryan, what about you?
Here's a guy that is not exceeding my expectations, but I think he's exceeding a lot of fans' expectations that were really down on him last year. And I think we mentioned him earlier, it's Patrick Queen. And I really think that Patrick Queen, with a year with the green dot and a full year as a Steeler, is a little more acclimated. I think his contract made him a scapegoat for a lot of things, but I think the expectations from a lot of people were low going into season number 2 with Patrick Queen, throwing around the fact that I don't agree with this, but throwing around that they overpaid for him. But I really think Patrick Queen is in that upper echelon of Steelers. And it's nice because he's not going to have to be a headline grabber like a TJ Watt, a Cam Hayward, a Jalen Ramsey now. Doesn't have to be that headline grabber, but he's quietly doing what he's supposed to be doing, and he's exceeding a lot of expectations.
That's a good one. I'm going to go with a rookie. I'm going to go with Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer, when he was drafted in the 4th round, I didn't know much about Jack Sawyer. I knew he played for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I remember the play he made against Texas where it was the scoop and score and all that stuff, and it was an exciting play. But when you started to read into like the breakdowns and stuff, what did they say? Jack Sawyer lacks bend. Jack Sawyer all hustle. Jack Sawyer doesn't have the technical skills to be a good pass rusher. So what do I start thinking? This guy's like a Tyler Matakevich if Tyler Matakevich was an outside linebacker. He's going to be a special teams ace. He's going to be a rock in that role. But I kind of pigeonholed him into that role. And what we're seeing so far, at least from the reports from camp, is that he's more than that. He is showing that he has a pass rushing prowess that's not just, I'm going to out hustle the person in front of me and hope the quarterback holds on to the ball longer. He's learning some stuff, and he and Nick Herbig have been a good tandem as they give Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt a break, which, shocking, here we go, breaking news. We've been saying this since he was drafted. If they could have a second line, if you think about hockey or lacrosse, like where you're throwing out a whole new line, and you give those guys a break and they can still be impactful, I'm not putting the cart before the horse, but so far in camp, Jack Sawyer has done better than I expected him to. So, Dave, anyone else that you want to bring up for either category?
Well, I mean, this could be just based on one really small sample.
Absolutely.
But something that exceeded my expectations is I would not have expect Troy Fautanu to go 2-0 against TJ Watt in one-on-one drills.
Now, Jim Wexell said he thought TJ was trying some stuff. That's what he said. He goes, it looked
Just,
like TJ
okay,
was
too.
trying. But still, it doesn't matter. Like, you put that feather in your cap.
But even Coach Tom says, like, he's going up against the best there is every day. This is going to make Troy Fautanu so much better having to go up against TJ Watt all the time.
Yeah.
And to me, I mean, how many people the first time they go up against TJ Watt? I mean, didn't they make a big deal over like Darnell Washington versus TJ Watt last year or something?
He got him this practice too.
Did he?
He got him on Wednesday, I think, once or twice, and he said, "Look, the war's just beginning. I'm not about to tout over one practice."
But I wouldn't expect you to say, "Oh, Fautanu did a good job against TJ Watt." That's just not something. Because I didn't think he would do a good job. It's that we're talking about TJ friggin' Watt. That's why.
Right. Yeah. Bryan, any other names you want to bring up?
Yeah, but before I do that, I just want to piggyback on yours, Jeff. I didn't get a chance to say anything about Jack Sawyer. Reminds me a lot of another Ohio State Buckeye that the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted, and this was way back in 1997. And he was a guy that excelled on special teams for him, but they didn't match the contract for him, and he ended up going to New England. It's Mike Vrabel. And I get a big Vrabel vibe out of this guy. Vrabel to me was a guy that had a hustle. He had to play blue collar, and I think that's exactly what Sawyer's doing. So I love your pick of Sawyer, and so maybe I go ahead and stay on the Ohio State train and say that I really feel that Will Howard is exceeding expectations in camp. A lot of people are really excited about what Will Howard's doing. A lot of people thought he was just I mean, I know he had a big name, but just a 6th round pick, just gonna struggle to. Dave's giving me the chin here,
Oh no, no, and you're right, because you had reasonable expectations about Will Howard coming into it. There was a lot of people that didn't, that they had way high expectations.
Yes.
And that's why he wouldn't necessarily meet or exceed them, because your expectations coming in was reasonable for a 6th round draft pick quarterback.
Yeah, and he's playing a lot better than that. And no, he's not competing for the starting job. He's not even competing for Mason Rudolph's job, but he's kind of locking in that QB3, even though Skylar Thompson had a very good day yesterday of what Kevin said, and he didn't get a chance to see Will Howard because he didn't play, but Howard's exceeding some expectations here as far as I'm concerned.
I do want to tell everyone out there, if you're listening to Bryan, he's quoting Coach Kevin Smith a lot. He obviously spoke to Coach, but if you want to know his full thoughts after seeing firsthand the first padded practice, go to steelcurtainnetwork.com right after this show, or whenever you're listening, and you'll see Kevin Smith's article is 10 takeaways from his visit to Latrobe. Well worth your time. Really good insight from a football mind, a football coach that's watching. This isn't just, oh yeah, TJ Watt did this. No, like he's watching personnel groupings and who's doing. Go check it out. SteelCurtainNetwork.com, completely free. Check it out. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back after this break, we're going to talk about salary cap update, a couple other bits of news, and we'll get to trivia and we'll get out of here. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Steeler fans, we are back. Obviously, you're watching live. We didn't go anywhere, but if you're in audio, we appreciate you guys being patient, listening to those ads from our sponsors. Now we turn our attention to other aspects of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Injury bug has kind of crept up, but it doesn't always be in a negative situation. Thursday morning, it was announced Isaac Seumalo was taken off the non-football injury list. He returned to practice, so that's a good news. Did he participate in team drills? No, but he was back doing individual work. He's on his way back. He's on the mend. Second bit of good news, Broderick Jones, who came back in a limited role on Wednesday, but stayed on Thursday. That means that they're easing him in from his groin injury. That's good news. But they have had a rash of injuries along the defensive front. According to Mike Tomlin, Dave, I'm sure you'll know these names. Dean Lowry, Jacob Slade, and Asezi, no clue. How you say it.
You know what? I actually got that name pretty much correct on Pittsburgh Standard Time, but I was reading it, trying to remember it. I'm not going to remember.
Anyways, those three defensive linemen are dealing with knee injuries, the severity of which we don't know. But if it's even, when you're talking about those three players, we're not talking about starting caliber players. You might see them go the way of Jeremiah Moon, and that is they get waived injured, and then they're basically a free agent if they get an injury settlement. Did I miss anything, Dave?
Oh, I just sent you a message, and it dinged for Bryan. But no, from those kind of things, no, that's pretty much everything going on.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to read this. This is a super chat. $5 from my pal Steeler Fan 69. He said, "Warning, Dave, do not read."
Hold on. You got to wait.
Why? Dave's Christian ears couldn't hear this. All right. My lesbian neighbors got me Timex for my birthday. It's nice, but I think they misunderstood me when I said I want to watch. That is a good one. That's really funny. All right.
It took me a second.
I think Dave.
Hey, I was told don't read it, so yeah.
That's funny. All right. Dave, you did a salary cap update for the website. I want to give you an opportunity to give people just a little lay of the land after signing Chuck Clark. Also, after Cordero Patterson is off the books, how much cap space do the Steelers have?
Yes. Now, so there was other moves in there, and there could be guys that go on IR. Now, the biggest thing to remember with players that go on IR, their contract isn't that doesn't actually affect them now until you get to 53 players. And that kind of gets wrapped up into where I have other money set aside for costs throughout the year, unless it's a big name, big time salary that's going to stay up in the top 51 salaries when it comes to guys going on IR. So we don't know if Jeremiah Moon's going to move on or go on IR, if there'll be an injury settlement, things of that nature. But Cordero Patterson, his release, that saved $2.8 million, but you gotta have salary displacement, and that brought in another $1.1 million salary into the top 51. So it netted $1.7 million. The Chuck Clark, he's got basically the same deal with Scotty Miller, except he actually has a little bit higher base salary because he's got more years, but it ends up being the exact same number because it's one of those veteran salary benefit contracts. But the thing that makes it the same as Miller's is he has the maximum quote unquote signing bonus you can have, but it's not a signing bonus. It's a roster bonus. So he only gets it if he makes the roster. Where with other guys with their veteran salary benefit contracts, if that's a signing bonus, if they don't make the roster, that's dead money. So if he doesn't make the roster, it's not going to be dead money. But honestly, he's got a pretty good shot at doing that. But his only really set it back because it was one of those contracts. It only set it back like $95K. So the number I have for the salary cap right now, and I have to put a little disclaimer about this, I don't have the same number for Jalen Ramsey as other places do. Over the cap is way off on it right now. They have him at like $19.5 million this year. And that's his cash paid, not his cap hit. So they have something they're still trying to figure out. Spot Rack has it lower than I think it might be because they kept his void years in. And I'm not keeping in his void years of his contract until I specifically see that the Steelers did that, which they very well might not. So my cap number could even be, another $900,000 and more money. But right now, the number I have is almost $33 million, 32.9. But remember, the Steelers are going to need about $13 million for in-season expenses, the last two contracts, the practice squad signings, all that. So really, if you think about that, they still have another $20 million they could work with right now, almost.
Which is a great segue into the fact that, and this was announced right before we went live, that one Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry as he goes, he's requested a trade. This does not mean he's going to get traded. The Commanders could say, well, you can want a trade all you want, but we're not going to trade you. But the Steelers kind of have some capital if they wanted to try and work that out. Bryan, I'll let you go first. Living where we do in the state of Maryland, you hear a lot about Mr. McLaurin, who's a phenomenal football player. I don't think the odds are great that the Steelers would ever sign him. What do you think, Bryan?
No, I don't think so either. But all I'm going to say is when you're talking about Omar Khan with a checkbook, anything can happen. But I don't think so.
Dave?
I mean, yeah, it would be great. I don't know exactly how they could do it because he's going to want a new deal. I will tell you, let's say he says, hey, if you're not going to pay me, I want to go somewhere else. Even if he doesn't want a new deal somewhere else and says, I'll go somewhere else, play the last year of my contract, and then be a free agent. Well, first of all, then that could add to the comp formula next year and everything, but that's a whole different story. He's got what would be, I mean, I guess his roster bonus was already paid that he was due this year. His workout bonus, that might have already been paid. I don't know. You're talking about, around 17 million maybe is what it would be to just for the 1 year. That's what you'd be taking in. So do the Steelers have the room for that? They do. Now, they would also possibly want to sign him to a longer contract or whatnot. Who knows what draft capital they'd have to give up. But he's really good. I am not going to complain one bit if he was a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even if people are like, oh, you're paying so much. Hey, you don't like them paying the defense so much, then you know what they got to do? Pay offensive guys. That's what changes that. So it is what it is. So, I mean, trust me, I would not turn down the opportunity for it to happen, but it's also not one that I'm betting on either.
I can complain about my wife's Amazon addiction, we'll call it that, and how it hurts our bottom line. As a family, it's our money. It's the Steelers' money. If the Steelers want to pay him a big-time contract, and I know in the history of the Steelers, they typically don't have two-star wide receivers making big money at the same time, they also don't have a quarterback that's making a crap ton of money like they had with Ben Roethlisberger when he was on contracts 2 and 3. And so for me, people complain about the money. If you could, if as long as they're not breaking any NFL rules with the salary cap, pay him whatever you want. It's your money. I don't care. He's a hell of a player. If you brought Terry McLaurin onto this offense, yikes! Like that would make them legit offensively. Like it would make them very well rounded. But Bryan, I have a feeling you want to say something too.
Now you know what the whole Jonnu Smith thing, bringing him in. And the way he's being deployed makes me think that they are less likely to do it because I think they feel like Jonnu Smith fills their need. And I was just talking about DK Metcalf running routes. KT was saying that Jonnu Smith was open all day yesterday. And that's a great thing to say. So I think they scratched that itch for the wide receiver too at this point. But my gosh, if that comes on your plate, you just say, screw tomorrow. Let's just go as far as we can. Let's push this envelope.
And for people that were saying, I know someone in the live chat said, I heard it was $25 million. His cap hit for Washington this year is $25.5 million. But more than $5 million of that, $5.6 million of that is a prorated bonus. And then I would assume that the roster bonus that was paid in March isn't something the Steelers have to pay now. That's what got me down to $17 million from there.
And two, let's keep in mind this would be a trade. So the Steelers, if they were to entertain a trade, which, by the way, Omar Khan is probably answering calls. If someone calls, or he's probably maybe put in a call. Who knows? I don't know. That's not source information. But if it's a trade situation, they could say, look, like we'll send you this, this, and this. You eat some of his contract this year. And then that hit doesn't transfer as much over. So it's so
they could take that hit.
They could take the hit. They could take the hit, but they could also say we're only going to have him for 1 year and he's going to be gone. Maybe we don't want to take as much on, but they could. I'll say this. Dave said he doesn't think it will happen. I don't either, but I've also been around enough and covered this team with Omar Khan as the GM to say anything can happen. Anything can happen. I'm not putting it by. If you would have said, Jeff, I need you to put money down on whether Minkah Fitzpatrick is on the roster for 2025 or not, I would have laid a ton of money down on him being on the roster in 2025, and he gets traded. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to happen or I expect it to happen, but I also wouldn't be shocked if it does. Any final thoughts on that, Bryan?
Yeah, you know what? This would be my final thoughts for the show, so I'm going to say it right now.
All right.
With Omar Khan, you're right. Anything could happen, because I want to double down on what you said, because we were all saying, me included, and I'm the eternal optimist usually, but we were all saying that DK Metcalf, they're never going to trade for DK Metcalf. Get that out of your head.
Jalen Ramsey, forget that.
Jalen Ramsey's never come. And everybody's like, he's not coming here. In fact, the weather's not good enough. Both of them wanted sunny skies.
Yeah.
The only one that's holding out right now is Keenan Allen, who says, I don't want to go there. Yeah. And people are still putting him on the Steelers list. And then nobody ever thought the Aaron Rodgers thing would ever happen. So this is not your dad's Steelers. This is not even my Steelers at this point. I'm just watching something that I always wanted to see happen. And it's so incredible to watch. Omar Khan to me, and this was my final thoughts, I'm about to say it now, Omar Khan to me is top 5 in the league right now, with knocking on some doors. He's not Howie Roseman yet, but my gosh, he's on his way.
I thank you for the final thoughts, and we'll definitely touch on this in a little bit. But I thought that Pat McAfee's presence at Wednesday's practice, and then him having Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin on the show, if you haven't listened, even if you just go to his Twitter feed and just watch the segments that they put out there, really interesting when they talked about the changes. Like, Bryan, you said, this isn't even your Steelers from when you were younger. It's not even my Steelers when I was younger, and I'm the youngest one here on the show. And it's because Kevin Colbert and back, they did things differently. And Omar Khan is doing things differently. And I think Mike Tomlin said it best when he was asked about this from McAfee. He said, sometimes you have to change. Sometimes you have to be willing to try things differently. And of course, that was just, finally, they're at least finally admitting that they need to do something a little bit different. Dave, I'm sure you checked those out. What do you think about those two, or McAfee in general, being at Wednesday's practice?
Yeah, I did not watch the show. I was not home to watch the show. I watched all the clips, well, not all the clips of all of the specific, some of the specific clips with specific people that McAfee put out on X. Like, I watched every clip that he had Mike Tomlin, every clip that he had Omar Khan, every clip that he had Danny Smith. Okay, wanted to see me some Danny Smith. So seeing those things, I even watched a little bit of Gene Steratore. So yeah, that was some interesting, for especially Tomlin and Khan, the stuff they were saying. I'm like, yeah, let's, and that's what makes you think, Omar Khan saying the right thing, that, hey, I really like this group of guys that we have here, because you have to believe in them. But my goodness, you do have some salary cap sitting out there, and honestly, you could save another $6 to $7 million on the cap and to restructure Pat Freiermuth, because the Steelers almost always restructure a guy the year after they sign them, and they haven't done it this year. So, I mean, don't do it if you don't need it. But so that's the one that's on the table. So, yeah, I mean, they really could do something big and really make that push. That would really be something. But the biggest thing I think with that would be what draft capital you have to give up. Would love to have the talent, just don't know what it would take to actually do it.
All right. Dave, you ready for trivia?
I am ready for trivia.
All right, let's get started.
Okay. Well, last week we talked about some obscure quarterback stats. I was going to do some obscure wide receiver stats this year, but I found it interesting that I was looking at like catch percentage, but on Pro Football Reference, it only goes back to like 1982. So I'm like, that's kind of tough that you don't go back the whole way and you're not including the 70s and all that other stuff with some of those guys and their catch percentages. So I found something else, and that is yards per reception, because they have that all the way back. There are 2 players that have a yards per reception of over 40 yards in Steelers history, and they're actually both more than double that. It's because they only had 1 catch in their career, and it went for such a long distance. Your hint is neither of them are a receiver. Do you know both players?
Bryan, go ahead.
Mark Malone.
Mark Malone has the highest yards per reception of anybody in Steelers history. And what is it, Bryan? Do you remember?
90, I think.
It was 90. He had a 90-yard touchdown catch from Terry Bradshaw. This was in 1981. This was in, do you remember
Seattle.
what it was, Bryan? Against
in
Seattle.
Seattle.
In Seattle, week 10, when the 5-4 Steelers lost to the 3-6 Seahawks. When they were up 21-10 going into the fourth quarter and blew the lead and lost 24-21.
Something else happened that night too after the game.
Which was
Cliff Stout was on a mechanical bull, the backup quarterback, and punched the mechanical bull and broke his hand.
Yeah.
And
that was that night. I know that story, but
yeah,
I didn't know
it was that night. And then what happened was Malone ended up having to start some games because Bradshaw was hurt when they were still in the playoff hunt.
Yeah. Yep, that was crazy. So you got one. So and I just like the stories that go along with it because there's going to be story that comes along with the other one. Any idea who else had only 1 reception and it went for? I'll even give you the number. It went for 81 yards.
Was it a special teams play, like a fake punt?
Yes, it was.
Oh, and I think I know this too.
I feel like I do too. I just cannot picture who it was.
Was it a defensive player?
It was a defensive player.
I can't. I'm drawing
I
a blank.
can't remember it either. But
What's hint number 1?
Okay, hint number 1 of when it was. When it was the last game the Pittsburgh Steelers played before Ben Roethlisberger joined the roster.
So we're talking about 2003.
Correct.
Week 17.
Mm-hmm.
A year was 6-10.
That's correct.
I was at the last home game that
Okay,
year. That wasn't the last game.
It wasn't home.
because they beat the Chargers at home. I was there for that game.
And the last game was a loss to Baltimore in Baltimore.
In Baltimore.
But I can't tell you who did it.
It was the only touchdown the Steelers scored in that game and almost took them out of the running to get Ben Roethlisberger, because that game went to overtime and they lost in overtime. If they win that game and they're 7-9, how much further down are they drafting?
Good bit.
So
Hank
it
Poteet.
was. Do you know who threw the pass?
Was it Miller?
It was Josh Miller.
Yeah,
Okay.
Josh.
Is his guess of Poteet correct?
No, it was not. I didn't hear it. I didn't hear the Poteet. Yes,
Okay,
I'm
you
sorry.
said
It was
Hank
not.
Poteet.
No. And this was let's see,
Chidi
'cause-
Iwoma.
Great reference, but it's not the right answer. In this game, the Steelers, they were down at halftime. I think it was. I mean, what were they? They were down 7-0 at halftime. They come out. The Ravens move the ball. The Steelers get the stop eventually. They stopped him at the Steelers 40-yard line, and the very next play, Ray Lewis gets an interception. Then the next play after that, Joey Porter forces a Jamal Lewis fumble that was recovered by Mike Logan. The Steelers go 3 and out, And on the what you would think would be the punt, it was on 4th and 1 at their own 19. Because that's why it was 81 yards. Josh Miller completed a pass to safety Chris Hope.
Oh, I should have known that. I saw a video of that. Someone just shared this random Steelers video, and that was one of. I should have known that.
Yeah. Never would have gotten that.
So, but they didn't have a lot of offense in that game.
A lot of Steelers Ravens games haven't had a lot of offense. That's good trivia. That's good trivia.
Really good.
All right, Dave, we just have you to do final thoughts because Brian's already done his.
Okay, you're good with that, Brian?
I'm good with that.
Okay. All right. My final thoughts are there's just plenty to get excited about now. We talked about the whole Terry McLaurin thing. That's exciting to think about. But even without it, I still think there's plenty of excitement brewing around the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was one of the things that who's the guy? Brian, you'll know his name. That was on the NFL Network on the Good Morning Football that just went to ESPN in the last several months.
Schrager?
Yes, I can never say his name right. He was saying something about that. I think it was today, if not, it was yesterday. About people. He's like, there should be a lot of hype about the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, no, whatever. He's like, with everything that they've done, no wonder their fan base is really hyped because the Steelers are like, you know what, we got to change things, and there was lots of change. Might not have been all the change that some people wanted, but you can't say that that this is the same old team running it back. That's why it's exciting. Football was back technically tonight, the Hall of Fame game. I doubt I'm going to watch any of that. I'll look forward to Friday Night Lights tomorrow night. Football will definitely be back next week when we will actually be previewing a game.
That's crazy.
So that's crazy to think about. So I'm here for the ride. This is fun. Don't wish it away. Enjoy it while it's coming.
What's up, Brian?
I do want to say this. I screwed up the name because Peter Schrager announced today that he is leaving Good Morning Football. So if you're talking about a couple months ago, it was Kyle Brandt.
Oh, no,
it was Schrager.
Okay.
Kyle Brandt's leaving NFL football? Good Morning Football?
One of them's leaving today, I thought.
Oh, no,
I thought I read something today, but
it was Schrager that went to ESPN. That was back in the offseason.
Yeah.
Okay, then
once you said that name, I knew it was
something
right.
old.
I could just never say.
I read something old.
Right. Yeah,
I'm gonna go away now.
All right, good stuff as always. I want to remind all the listeners out there to check out all of our podcasts. Some that are only on the audio platform. Dave's Pittsburgh Standard Time, which ran this morning with Greg Benevent. You can hear Brian's Bad Language. Here we go, Steelers Show with Coach Kevin Smith on Mondays and Tuesdays. You have My Let's Ride every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Go check all those out. And there's more out there that I just didn't name. And also SteelCurtainNetwork.com. We've been churning out more content, and the people have been following. We thank you all for that have checked it out. If you haven't, again, SteelCurtainNetwork.com. It is completely free. And just go to the top of the page, create an account, be in the comment section. Love to hear from everyone. Thank you all, everyone that's checked it out. We do appreciate it. So,
and I've been saying this. If you're listening to this right now, make sure you also go check out the website. Tell five Steeler fans, tell them about the podcast, tell them about the website, because that's how we're going to grow is through you all. If you like what you hear, if you like what you read, share it for us.
Absolutely. So, Dave, while you're there, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
We'll see you next week on our Steelers preview.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.